there, and welcome to The High Ground, a Doof bonus content show where we're reliving George Lucas's beloved Star Wars prequel trilogy. I am your Jedi Master, Georgia Diebold.
And I'm your rat-tailed Padawan, Elliot Diebold.
And I'm the youngling, Reuben Morehouse. Before we start, I just want to say there was a moment where I looked at your line in the script, Elliot, and thought, yep, that's me. I'm Elliot Diebold. I'll just start reading this line now, completely forgetting who I was for a second.
It's crazy.
I mean, like, Reuben has had a few, like, Ron Burgundy moments where there's been, like, typos or the wrong word in intro and outro bits before, and he's just read it out verbatim. And I haven't been
That's
sure.
exactly what that is.
Should we talk about this film?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
You read the black text, remember, Georgia?
I thought you did it.
Professionals.
I'm the opposite of Ron Burgundy. I have to be constantly prompted. So as is tradition, we open with a text crawl, and it says, "War! Grievous has kidnapped the Chancellor. Who will save him? It will probably be the same two or three Jedi who do everything for the whole war."
Yeah.
So yes, spoiler alert, it is Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Classic text crawl beginning again. Just immediately puts me off the film. Like, I know it's tradition, but it's the worst. It's just it's so terrible. It's the exact opposite of show don't tell, right? Because not only are they telling you, they're making you read it, which is even worse.
What's funny is you started saying that as this was playing and we were watching it together. And I actually went to defend this one. I was like, look, I agree that this is a stupid tradition, the text crawl, but I am going to be fair and give this one credit for actually being good.
Mm.
And your response as I said that was to realize that you hadn't even been reading it.
Yeah, and then I had to read it when it was already really small and most of the way up the screen, and it made it worse.
Yeah, at least it started with "war" in capital letters with an exclamation point. That's pretty exciting. But,
I mean, yeah.
like unironically, like, yeah, I was like, this one actually tells you important things. It's like, there's a war that's been going on. There's, evil on both sides and, good on both sides. Evil's everywhere. Like, no. And it's like, and now, like, the Chancellor is being kidnapped. Like, it tells us actually what we need to know, like, puts us in the action.
Do we need to know that there's a war going on and there's good and evil on opposite sides? That's the plot of literally every Star Wars film ever. I feel like that was implied knowledge.
I mean, look, I'm not saying there's not a better way to do this. You could have done this with, like, a cool scene. Like, Anakin and Obi-Wan could have, like, gotten an extra mission brief of exposition in the opening shot, like, in the midst of the action. But if you're going to do the stupid text crawl, I think this was the best one out of the 4 movies we've watched for this podcast.
But I think that the text scroll is like it's a pretty good example of, somebody who now really likes Star Wars and all that. I see it and I'm like, oh, nostalgia, and I love it. Like, I see the text scroll and I get really excited and I really like it as a setup. It puts me in the mood. But then I guess as like an objective outsider coming in, it's interesting that it very much doesn't land. And I could see how it is shit. Like, now that you pointed out, I'm like, it is shit.
Yeah. Although, having said that, the one part of the traditional Star Wars opening that I really like is the text scrolls off and then the camera always pans down from the view of the background stars to some, like, action space sequence, which is great. That's always fun in a Star Wars film.
Yeah, I do like that.
Those are always nice.
Yeah, that transition is very fun.
Yeah. So here we cut to Obi-Wan and Anakin flying into the main spaceship to rescue the Chancellor. And they rescue him, and then Anakin kills Dooku.
By chopping off his fucking hands.
Yeah. And then chopping off his fucking head with his own lightsaber. It's pretty radical.
What a psychopath.
I mean, this whole sequence was cool though, right? Like the spaceship bit, the taking out the ship bit. Like, I was just instantly, just compared to the other two, I was instantly like, it's fucking rules.
And it's cool. I think it's the first time we see Anakin flying, like being a sick pilot, since they kind of established that in the first film.
Yes.
Yeah, he sort of took a break from that in episode 2, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm remembering back to Phantom Menace now, and there's that scene where he's like flying the ship through the other ship and blowing shit up. That was awesome.
Yeah,
What a
that
great
was
pilot
cool.
he was. Now he's gotten older and gotten a much worse pilot.
Although he does his spinning, and it's still a good trick.
Yeah.
In this one, but I do want to take a moment though to apologize. I criticize episode 8 a lot for being stupid. Like that's the one where they ride horses on top of one of the Star
Oh
Destroyers for a
god,
bit,
that's dumb. Yeah.
and
Forgot
and I
about
always
that.
made fun of it. Episode 8 for not making sense, but rewatching episode 3 and having watched the Clone Wars last year, that's actually just Star Wars. It's just nonsense.
Yeah, the Star Wars
Like,
space battles don't make much sense. No.
yeah, like
It's not
why
just
are
the
Obi
fact
and
that there's all the
Anakin?
sound, but
Yeah, like the concept of space, ironically, is just completely batshit insane in Star Wars fights. Like they don't, like people will just be like, "Oh, we can't get past the blockade," and it's like just enter hyperspace or some shit, or like it's a big fucking planet. Like go
it's like,
around.
can't you just go all the way around? Yeah, I never get that. I'm like, I don't understand how these blockades work. And then I sort of think, maybe I just don't get it. I'm so forgiving.
I just think the writers don't have an explanation, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I guess I need to walk back some of the criticism I've labeled at episode 8 because I think I was unfair because I think it was well established before episode 8 that this shit is nonsense.
I do
And
think
episode
the
8 just lent
horses
into
on
that.
top of the spaceship was a new level, though. I remember watching that movie and thinking, what? What
Yeah,
is
but I can almost
happening?
get behind it more
Yeah.
if it's like if they were
Yeah, I
already
guess.
stupid. Then Ryan Johnson was just like fucking horses on a spaceship. Like I don't give a
Let's do
fuck.
it.
Like there's a bit where in this dogfight, I think the spaceship, one of the enemy fighters or something, shoots little droids at Obi-Wan's ship to start dismantling it. And of course that makes no sense because if you can shoot something at something else, why would you shoot droids to slowly dismantle it rather than just like
Shoot a
shoot the
bomb.
ship? Yeah,
And
exactly.
a laser,
right?
yeah.
But it's cool, and it's the rule of cool. Who cares if it makes sense as long as it looks cool? That's the Star Wars vibe,
Yeah.
and I can get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked the bit where one of the clones came on the screen and we'd just been talking about the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I'd just been talking about. I'd been watching 2 seasons of. I just binged Mando this month, and
So proud.
yeah, I was so thanks.
Fuck you, Elliot.
And I was kind of like, oh, I hope, because I haven't watched much Star Wars stuff. I watched some of Clone Wars and stuff. I was hoping that we would see some characters that I recognized, and then immediately we see one of the clones, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Boba Fett, but it's not. It's just a clone, but they all look the same, and it took me a moment to realize. So that was a good moment.
It was very
That was
funny.
very fun. That was very fun to live in the
Because
live
I
watch
think
group
as
and being like,
you
"Oh my god,
said
it's Boba!" Oh.
I said, "Lol, look, it's Boba Fett," and then you were like, "Is that Boba Fett?" Oh.
I mean, it could have been. Could have been. You never know.
He could have been going undercover. You never know.
Yeah. If anyone could go undercover as a clone, it's Boba Fett. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, that is in the Clone Wars.
Oh, is it?
That definitely happens. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he does do
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
But the problem, he's only like a kid at this point.
the Boba arcs are weird in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, you know which character we see a lot of in this film that we don't see enough of in the Clone Wars and Mandalorian is the Separatist droids.
Yeah.
Like there are a bunch of scenes where like Grievous is just shitting on like the Roger droids, and it's just they need their own show. I need this to happen. I don't want the Bad Batch. I want the Bad Batch, but they're Separatist droids. It's a Bad Batch of Separatist droids.
That would actually be so good.
They
I
could
would
be the
love to see
villains of the
that.
Bad Batch. If there's a rival Bad Batch of Separatist, Disney, call me. We can make this happen.
That is a very good idea, Elliot. I can see that's like your dream come true.
There's like a Separatist droid with like a mustache drawn on it.
Monocle or
One
whatever.
that's just really big, like they accidentally just made it really big.
Oh no, that one that got put on C-3PO's body in episode 2. His wires were forever crossed, so they went and got another 3PO body, and he still got it, and he's the tech.
Or he's just a head.
Speaking
no
of
body.
R2, Oh, sorry, we were talking about C-3PO, but I'm transitioning us to R2. Speaking of droids, I guess, R2 in this sequence is so combat-enabled. Like, all of a sudden, he's turned into what is effectively a super Dalek, like flying around and zapping people.
He beats 2 actual combat droids.
Which are meant to be like a solid threat, right?
Yeah, and he just destroys them, like, seemingly easily.
He lights them on fire. He covers them in oil and then lights it on fire. It's fucking
so
barbaric.
What a psychopath. Yeah.
And like when they're flying and Obi-Wan's ship gets shot with the little droid things to dismember it, and his droid R4 just gets like torn to pieces, RIP. And then they go into Anakin's ship and R2 just like zaps them, just kills them. It's like,
He's got
you
no
gotta
chill.
get yourself an R2.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good thing Anakin broke all those rules in the Clone Wars and let R2 develop sentience so that he could do that.
I love that arc. And basically Mace Windu is like, this is a terrible idea. This droid knows way too many secrets. Like, and then at the end of the arc, R2 saves him and he's just like, oh, well, guess I've been shown. Like, all right, keep him.
Well, it works out here. So,
Yeah.
cool. Although they do wipe R2's memory at the end of this.
No,
movie.
he says wipe the protocol droid's memory. It's just C-3PO. For some reason, they just leave R2.
Because he's the one that can talk.
Yeah.
you know that's what
Who's
it is.
R2 going to tell?
And 3PO is the worst fucking character.
Oh, he's so fucking annoying. I actually hate him more than Jar Jar Binks. Like,
Yes,
Jar Jar
me
Binks is
too.
kind of annoying, but C-3PO is worse. He's so annoying.
Well, and C-3PO's everywhere is the problem.
Oh,
Yeah,
he
because
keeps
everyone
coming back.
agrees Jar Jar is annoying, so that they've kind of, shelved him. Whereas, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm insane saying C-3PO is annoying. How is that not the most common opinion in the entire fandom? He's the fucking worst.
But he just keeps coming back.
Really
he
sucks.
wasn't. Yeah.
Why?
I liked that part of episode 9 where he died.
Yeah.
It was sort of sad for a second, and then I was like, but
No, wait,
also, goodbye, C-3PO.
Yeah, but
Why couldn't it have just been the separatist droid on his head forever after that point? So he's just a separatist droid with C-3PO's body. That would be great.
Yeah.
I could even do C-3PO's personality with the like protocol droid voice.
Yes, God, yeah.
And still says Roger, Roger.
Do like one of those special remastered editions of the original trilogy where they replace C-3PO's head with a Roger Roger droid.
Lucas has done worse. I'm sure he'd do it.
Yeah, and then we get to the bit where Anakin kills Dooku. It's a pretty good scene. I really like this scene.
Very
especially
brutal.
when you've watched the Clone Wars and you've seen like Dooku's obviously been their enemy for like, however long this war's gone on for, like 4 or 5 years or whatever, and like done all these horrible things, and then he's kind of got in there and Palpatine's like, kill him. And Anakin's like, I kind of really shouldn't do that. He's unarmed, yeah.
God, unarmed, literally. Anakin calls him unarmed after he's chopped off his hands. And he says it seriously, like it's not meant to be a joke, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Did he not realize what he was saying?
Yeah, but it's such a cool moment because it's like Dooku's sitting there and Palpatine's going, kill him, like do it or whatever. And then, he's just sitting there like, oh my God, like Palps, we've been friends for like 5 years. I've done everything you said and you're just going to toss me aside because Anakin's better than me, and he just kind of sits there and dies.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Sad.
Although I want to take issue with the fact that Obi-Wan says that Sith Lords are their speciality.
Yeah.
They have killed 0 Sith Lords, and this war has been going on for 0 years. Never mind that he's saying that to a Sith Lord. That's the intended joke. I'm talking about the fact that they're clearly not their speciality. He didn't even manage to kill Darth Maul. This is the point where in the TV show they found out Maul is well and good alive. So Obi-Wan full well knows he's never killed a Sith Lord.
In fact, the only one he thought he had killed, he failed to kill. So,
it always
exactly.
comes up as a meme where it's like, Sith Lords are our speciality, and then it's like, screenshots of like Anakin on the ground, like Luke lost his hand, and like Obi-Wan getting like tossed against a wall and then just getting like shot all over by the Sith. Qui-Gon getting stabbed. It's like, no, they're not.
Yeah. That's it. Anakin finally wins one for the good guys. I guess that victory doesn't technically last. But yeah, good on him.
Mm. So then, as the team tries to escape, Dooku and his droids sabotage the Grievous and his droids sabotage the. I just did a wrong Burgundy.
Saved it.
Grievous and his droids sabotage the ship, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan have another happy landing.
Classic.
So should we just talk about Grievous, who's sort of introduced here once Dooku
He is a
gets
great
killed?
character.
Yeah, I hadn't thought that this is his first appearance, isn't it? It is too.
Yeah.
God, he's so cool.
First and, I mean, only in the films, right?
Yeah, he only appears in this film. It just feels like he's been there forever because he's so cool.
Yeah, I was surprised he wasn't in episode 2 when we watched it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I
I
forgot he wasn't in
remembered
that.
him being way more important.
Why is it that the shitty villains, e.g. Palpatine, are the ones who stick around for all the movies, whereas the actual
Yeah.
fun villains are only in it for 1 or 2 movies tops?
Yeah, best thing
Yep.
they ever did was bring Maul back. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, that's kind of lame. And then, like, a season later, I was like, God, I love Maul.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I did the same thing. When it first happened in the Clone Wars, I was like, what are we doing? And then, and then it sort of kept going. And I was like, no, this was the right call.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then Grievous is very good. Vader is very good. We don't get enough Vader action. But anyway,
Is Vader good? Is he?
I like Vader.
He's consistently the most boring villain in Star Wars things he pops up in my
I think
opinion.
he's
better
genuinely
than
scary.
Palpatine. He's better than Palpatine. That's what
Yeah,
I'll say.
See, I don't know
definitely.
if I don't know if I'd say that that's the case. I would be more excited for Palpatine to show up than Vader in like an episode of another Star Wars show.
Oh, you know, like in Rebels
Nah.
when he turns up and you just think, like, you're just like genuinely scared. He's doing his
No, I
heavy
was
breathing
genuinely
and
bored because
Oh,
I knew
really?
he wasn't going to kill the goodies, and I knew they weren't going to do anything to him. Because I think the big problem with Vader is in something like Rebels. You know that at the end of Rebels, he has to end up
But that's the
pretty much
same for
exactly what
any
he
of the
fucking is.
villains they bring
Yeah.
in that have film
No, it's
history.
not though because they're less like Palpatine sort of shows up for like what the end of episode 6 or something. Like there's room to include him in other things, whereas like Vader just like isn't doing anything ever. Like he's just walking around. Maybe he kills some Jedi or some shit, or he goes looking for holocrons or whatever the fuck. But like at the end of the day, they kind of need to have him in a holding pattern until he can find Luke. Whereas like Palpatine could,
Yeah,
you
but when
know,
he's in that holding pattern,
different.
he's so cool. Like he's so like
No, he's not because
badass.
he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, but he does.
He can't even spin and do cool tricks.
He does. He's like, have you seen
He
have you
chokes
seen
people
Rogue
out.
One when he has his sick corridor scene?
I fell asleep by that part.
I'm pretty sure it's the start of the fucking movie.
No,
Maybe-
it's at the,
yeah.
No, I thought it
it's
was
at
the end.
Oh
very
no, it is the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the end. God, that's a cool scene. That's peak Darth Vader. You also got to watch. Somebody did like a their own version of the Obi-Wan versus Vader fight from like episode 4. It's on YouTube. I can't remember what it's called, but fuck, it's so good. You're like, yeah, they should put that in the movie now. I'll link you guys to it later.
Okay.
Pop it in the show notes, Elliot.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, back to General Grievous. I mean,
Actually, can we
love
touch
how-
on that voice for a second? Just please, quickly.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it again, just for the audience at home?
Oh, wait, do you want me to do a proper
Yeah,
like
do a
attempt
Grievous
at a
voice.
Grievous?
Do a Grievous.
Okay, hold on. I need to get in character.
Yeah.
I hate Jedi.
Yeah.
Jedi.
You
I'm
got
a
4
robot,
arms.
and I hate Jedi.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm holding my legs up like they're extra arms. Another fine addition to my collection.
See, that's
very
pretty
good.
good. The thing I love about that, and you might have noticed this, audience at home, it's impossible to determine what accent that's meant to be, right? But that's just how Grievous talks. I don't understand if it's meant to be an accent that is recognizable or not. It just sounds so bizarre.
It's something European.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
most I can
Right?
knock it down to. But even it sounds very different. Like, yeah, like one scene you'll think, is that Germany? Is that a German accent? And then it will change to be like British or like, Ukrainian or Russian or something. And you're like, oh, you just can never pin it down.
Yeah. I mean, he's so interesting to me, Grievous, because I feel like Grievous to me is the like mascot or epitome of the prequels in that he looks fucking sick. He sounds cool, but that's kind of him. Like he has no substance as a character.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he hates the Jedi, and
Yeah.
there's potential there. Like he's like a robot with some organic parts, and I think Georgia was saying as we were watching it, like there's all this other backstory that the movie just never fucking bothers to tell us, and it's like that's the prequels in a nutshell. Is he looks cool, he sounds cool, he dies quickly, and we don't really learn anything nice about it or cool about him. You know, like he is a metaphor for the prequel movies.
Mm. He's only in the films because there's that one bit where he has to do his crazy spider climb to get away, and it looks awesome, and
I love his
therefore
spider
his
climb.
entire presence in the movie is justified because he just looks so awesome when he's kind of fucking spider climbing around.
Yeah, like you can tell they started from what if there was an evil robot Jedi with 4 arms and also then he can do spider climbing, and they're like, yeah, fuck, chuck him in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's like
Sold.
the bit in the Clone Wars. There's an episode that where he's like in his kind of house, and they send like some Jedi like Kit Fisto and someone go to try and like capture him, and he just keeps like losing body parts, and like he sort of like monkey la bar swings himself into his, because he's lost his legs, like into his room with all these spare parts and chucks some new legs on and stuff, and you're just like, God, he's so cool.
See, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, like so. Yeah, I love the bit here where he just ejects himself into space, taking advantage of the fact that he's like a robot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when like his enemies are organic, like that's a baller move.
Yeah, it is. He's great.
Yeah. And sorry, and then to jump ahead, they do the landing. Like Anakin gets on their happy landing. Isn't this whole planet like a city? Like they
Yeah.
crash land
In a very
huge
densely populated
chunk of
area.
ship.
Yeah.
Like this must have killed thousands of people.
I mean, it's probably not the worst thing the Jedi have done. Let's be honest.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
True.
It's just not even brought up. Yeah. Like, am I wrong? I don't understand why
you're right.
This isn't brought up.
The Jedi just don't give a shit about that kind of thing.
Because I think, isn't that I'm trying to think, is that a whole thing in the Clone Wars where they're like, this is the first part of the war that's actually come to Coruscant? Like, this kind of scene where they've actually captured the Chancellor and they're having like a big space battle. So probably all those people dying was actually like a big deal to them. But again, they don't touch on that in the movie.
No time for actual like real human characters. We got crazy shit to take care
of. Yeah, so after this, speaking of, Anakin meets up with Padme and she tells him the excellent news that her space birth control did not work and she is preggers. Then Anakin has a bad dream, which is not a nightmare because Jedi do not have nightmares.
Yep, as has been firmly established.
Yeah.
I was actually really, like, when he did say, I had a bad dream, I was like, oh, thank God, because if they were going to retcon the Jedi could have nightmares, I was going to lose my shit.
Yes, in his bad dream, Padme dies in childbirth. Yes, I love that. So he turns up and, you know, they like super not secretly do a big hug and like start making out just like behind a pillar. And it's like,
Yes.
somebody totally saw this.
This pillow will protect us from prying eyes.
And
it's ridiculous that it does, though. Like, it absolutely achieves its goal. And I'm like, yeah, this place is so willfully fucking blind.
Yeah, and he gives her this, like, Anakin gives her this big hug, and then, like, you know, 30 seconds later in the conversation, she's like, oh, I'm pregnant. But, like, she's, like, nearly at term at this point, like, with twins.
Yes, it's
like,
very
how do you
visibly
hug her and
pregnant.
not realize she's got this huge belly? It's very weird.
Anakin's he just doesn't judge, man. Like, he noticed, like, you know, his long distance
Ooh.
girlfriend put on a bit of weight, and he's not just going to be
Been a
like,
stressful
even
time at
Anakin's
the Senate,
not-
huh?
Yeah, even Anakin's not that shit a person that he's going to be like, oh, honey, what happened?
Oh,
You know, like,
do you have a very huge, tense belly that's clearly a big pregnant belly?
No, she's
yeah,
just
because
been
the crazy.
She's just been visiting Greasy Sal's or whatever that fucking diner from the second movie was called way too much.
Because the crazy thing,
like,
I didn't realize for ages that that this whole movie only takes place over like 3 days or something. I always thought when I was younger that this took place over like months, and that Padme was only like just pregnant at that point, and that by the time
I
Anakin's
would have
gone
made that
evil,
assumption.
that he'd have been. But apparently, it's like 3 days or something, which I still can't quite in my head get wrap around.
So even if Luke and Leia were premature, because she was dying, which we'll get to,
Spoilers.
she's got to be what, at least 6 months pregnant with twins.
I mean, 6 months isn't much for them to survive. I suppose they have space technology.
There's space doctors.
But they don't put them straight into like an incubator.
No, they seem fine as soon as they're out.
Yeah.
Maybe
at least
maybe
30
they have
weeks.
maybe
32.
despite not having space birth control, they have space like baby accelerant. Like, maybe they can
Fertilizer.
shorten. I mean,
yeah,
sure.
maybe the gestation period for space babies is only like 3 months, for all we know.
Yeah. Well, 3 days apparently.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm pregnant right now.
That was a really good kiss.
I'm just gonna clarify because otherwise we might get tweets. The name of the diner was Dex's Diner, staffed, of course, by Dexter Jetster. I don't know how I forgot that, but I did.
How could you forget that name?
Yes, Dexter Jetster.
Very good.
What is Sal's Diner then? Is that
Sounds
the
like
one
something,
from
doesn't it?
Futurama?
I googled it, but nothing came up, so I don't know what I'm referencing.
Is that the one that Fry works at in Futurama?
No, that's Penucci's Pizza, Elliot. Come on.
Yeah, fuck, that's it.
Yeah, what's
idiot.
Sal's from?
Jesus Christ. No, I don't know what Greasy Sal's is. It sounds like something, but I think I just made it up. Maybe not.
No, it sounds really familiar. I'm with you.
Yeah, it does.
Well, tweet us, folks, if you know what Greasy Sal's is. So, yeah, I mean, again, these two characters, I know they fell in love and got married in the last film, apparently, but because we never really saw that, right? Like, we never really felt that they even really liked each other that much.
It seemed to go from awkward to married very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, again, like the romance parts of this movie are as dog shit as they were in the previous one. It's just there's less of them in this one. That's really all it comes down to for me, is I didn't find the ones that were on screen this movie any less offensive. There were just so many less of them.
Yeah, and there's a bit where when they're talking about she's like, Anakin, what are we gonna do? Like, if they find out you're the dad, they'll kick you off the council, and I don't think they'll let me keep being a senator. It's like, what kind of like backwards space society is this that she can't be a senator because she had a baby? Or is it because she has a baby like seemingly out of wedlock? Or I was like, that was a weird line. Better? No.
Yeah, but we know the
Would
Jedi
it be because it was with a Jedi? Like, that's the best explanation I can come up with.
Yeah, but she kind of says, I think she
one.
says first, she's like, I don't think they'll let me keep being a senator. And if they find out that you're the father, they'll kick you out of the Jedi. So she's presuming, regardless, that she'll have to stop being a senator just because she's like pregnant or having a baby or something. I was like, garbage.
I mean, I'm not surprised there are regressive politics in this. It's pretty the fact that Jedi can't. Essentially they take a vow of chastity as a race, which is a very strange thing. I don't know, not surprising to me that exists elsewhere.
True. Sorry.
Before we move on to the next section, I know that part's in black in the doc, but I'll read it out anyway because just so everyone's aware at home, the next 10 minutes-ish of the film are going to be quite lightly covered because when I went back to all the notes we took as we were watching to kind of do the plot summaries, we were just talking about The Mandalorian and Bo-Katan for like straight 10 minutes. Yeah. I have no idea what was happening in the movie.
Good times. So there probably wasn't much that was missed, right?
It doesn't seem like it, because I kept making the summaries afterwards and it didn't feel like I was missing anything.
This was such a long movie. How long is this film? It felt so long to me.
140 minutes.
Yeah, it does feel long, doesn't it?
So that's 2.5 hours, which is solid.
Yeah.
No Star Wars movie should be longer than, 97 minutes tops, I think.
I think in this bit they figure around with a bit of like politics and like Anakin and Padme just like talk a bunch and Anyway,
Great.
and then at some point,
But there's still a bunch of that I cover here. Like, that's the thing. There's still like another 20 minutes of that we're about to talk about. So it must have been half an hour of it, and the first 10 minutes was completely missable. I don't know.
I'm not surprised, to be honest, that we didn't touch on it. I mean, this film did kind of start to drag at this section of it.
Yeah, I think he gets a bit slow here. But anyway, at some point, Anakin gets appointed as Palpatine's member on the council, but he is not a Jedi Master. He's just on the council, but he's not, and it's outrageous, it's unfair.
Oh, wow.
But he does take a seat. And then Palps gets, basically builds up his power, gets some more supreme powers. And then the council asks Anakin to spy on Palps, which he obviously uses to get Anakin more on his side.
Which, again, is crazy, because Palpatine is so obviously a villain to every single person who can see it. Like, I mean, literally, Palpatine had a scene before where he was like, oh, no, don't worry about taking this prisoner and just kill him. And Anakin's like, no, I really shouldn't. But then in the next 10 minutes, Anakin's like, no, Palpatine's the only good person left. I must defend him. Like, it doesn't make any sense why Anakin is so ride or die for Palpatine.
Well, Palpatine also tries to get him to leave Obi-Wan for dead, right? Remember? Like, straight after that, so he's like, just leave him, we don't have time. And Anakin's like, what? Yes. No, like, we're obviously taking him. It's crazy.
But then 20 minutes later, Anakin's like, oh, but Palpatine, he's the best of us. We have to protect him, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, and never mind the fact that we ended the last film with, like, the Jedi being like, I think we need to keep a closer eye on Palpatine. It's been 5 years of them fucking being in the same building as him.
It's like, did they just get distracted by the war? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it's still at this point, Windu and Yoda are like, okay, we're going to keep an eye on this Palpatine guy. Like, it's just...
We're still keeping an eye on him. Yeah. But I really like this bit where they sort of say, you know, they ask Anakin to spy on Palpatine because, despite all of that, they have, I think, you know, ever since The Phantom Menace, he and Palpatine have been very tight. Like, he's been sort of a real mentor to him. So it's just cool because it's like, from the Jedi's point of view, it's tactically a very good idea. Like, they've been suspicious of him for a long time, and Anakin is close to him, so, you know, he's the best option for it. But it also kind of shows how heartless the Jedi have become, because that's obviously going to upset Anakin a lot. And it's quite a lot to ask of somebody, like, oh, you know, that person who, like, sort of, like, has helped raise you and, like, been a massive mentor to you for, like, the past sort of, like, 10 years or something. Could you just spy on them because we're pretty sure they're evil? And of course he's going to be like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. So I really like that as an idea of how to just kind of show that the Jedi aren't perfect.
Yeah, well, it shows how out of touch they are, that they think that Anakin would be okay with doing that.
Yeah,
really.
like that he'll just sort of not really give a shit, and just because it's sort of the smart thing to do, that he'll just be like, oh, okay. But obviously he doesn't, because he actually has, like, friends and feelings and such.
Yeah. Wait, honestly, I want to say here, like, I know we ragged on the politicking and stuff before, you know, when we were talking about how he zoned out for 10 minutes, and we've obviously shat on it in the other films. This sequence of stuff here with Anakin becoming his thing, and then you like the being asked to spy stuff, and then even Palpatine getting the supreme powers. I actually found that part of the politics stuff kind of engaging, because it directly related to the plot and moved it forward, and actually felt like people were sort of trying to play mind games. Mostly Palpatine. Palpatine's actually the one who's doing stuff and, like, feels like he's playing chess, and everyone else is playing fucking, I don't know, checkers.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I just actually kind of liked it. I was like, this is, like, fairly enjoyable politicking stuff, especially for a Star Wars film.
Yeah, I think in this movie they have, like, they don't do too much politics, and like you said, they just dwell on the bits that are directly relevant to the plot and do it in a way where it is actually exciting.
You know, of course, the reason why it's not terrible is because there's no Jar Jar in this film. I didn't realize until about halfway through we hadn't seen Jar Jar, and I was like,
the only bit that Jar Jar comes in for is when he's the person who actually nominates to give Palpatine, like, emergency powers.
No, that was last movie.
Yeah, no, that was last movie. He's
was
not in
it?
this
That was
film
the
at
other
all.
one. Yeah, he appears in this one, like, he's in the background of a few scenes.
Oh, that's right.
But he doesn't say
Oh,
a
no, that's
word.
right. Palps just makes himself emperor, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, no, my mistake. I thought I just missed that bit because I just my brain just shut out.
Shut out,
Jar Jar or
Jar Jar.
something.
no, yeah, Jar Jar doesn't say a word in this one, and
he just is at
I mean,
Padme's funeral looking sad briefly. I think that's
it
his
would
only
have been
appearance.
better if he actually turned out to be a Sith Lord, but whatever.
We can't do that
Fine.
again.
That
You,
Sorry,
they
already talked
can,
about that for
and
ages.
Elliot, the scene at the start of the film where Dooku was there and had kidnapped Palpatine, it was originally meant to be Jar Jar, but they edited him out. Tragic.
see that because that has its own problems with believability. Because if you launched a massive armada and stole Jar Jar Binks from Coruscant, I mean, nobody's rushing to rescue him, right? Oh yeah, I mean, we'll get to it. It's just I've got yoga class in an hour.
I have to cut my nails.
Yeah, it's been so long since I trimmed my beard.
So after this, Yoda goes to help defend Kashyyyk. And Itchy isn't there, which is disappointing. But he was probably watching porn. We can safely assume.
Good stuff. Yeah, that was fun. I liked being on Kashyyyk. I remembered it from Star Wars Battlefront. It was my elder sister's favorite level to play, so I immediately recognized it. And I was like, "Oh shit, it's Kashyyyk! I recognize this from the video game."
You know what I didn't recognize was those super cool Wookiee ships that looked like dragonflies. I'd never really noticed those before, but they were so cool.
I mean, again, this is another point I think we've hit in every single episode of this show. The prequel tech fucking rules.
Yeah.
There's the big guns in the opening scene that are shooting bullets, between the ships, and there's giant shells coming up. They're really kinetic. The guns as they're sort of firing. All the tech on this fucking Wookiee beach siege is phenomenal. Yeah, there's dragonfly ships coming around, fucking droids popping out of the water. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I really like it. So,
and just again, sorry, the concept of a beach storming in general is just so fucking stupidly awesome.
Again, you need to just get to the end of Rogue One, Elliot, because the whole final scene is a sick beach battle.
Yeah, but the other part was boring, so I fell asleep.
It's not boring. It's such a good movie.
but no, okay, but the point where we can, and I think I said this in our medium DD as well, but all of the Clone Wars and the prequel stuff, they use World War II imagery a lot, and that's what this fucking beach storming on Kashyyyk feels like again. And it makes no sense, but I do fucking love the idea of
why would they land in the water as opposed to just landing somewhere else on the planet? God knows.
Just shoot a meteor down, right? If you really want to kill them all or whatever. But again, I'm willing to look past it because droids emerging from the water as dragonfly ships fly around and shoot lasers is so fucking cool. Taking World War II battle tactics and putting them in space was the coolest thing about the Clone Wars and this movie.
So now we just have it's written in my color, but I don't think I wrote this, that we're just going to shit all over Yoda for a bit. Is that the plan?
I guess.
Yeah, well,
where did this come from?
Georgia brought this quote here.
Oh, so this is from some book, some Star Wars book.
I figured the reason you included this quote was because you wanted to shit on Yoda, because that's what I took out of this quote. I didn't
put this in. I don't think I put this in here. Did I?
You sent it to me. Put it in.
Oh, I remember sending it to you a while ago.
This movie's just been written off completely from your mind, Georgia.
But I must have sent this to you months ago or something. This wasn't today.
It was right after episode. No, it was right after episode 2. And you sent me this, but I said we should talk about this at episode 3. And so I put the image in the docs.
Oh, see, that was 2 months ago. I can't remember that far back. So it's a quote from some Star Wars book that always gets posted on Reddit. Basically a quote from Dooku saying, the Jedi Order's problem is Yoda. No being can wield that kind of power for centuries without becoming complacent at best or corrupt at worst. He has no idea what that has overtaken him. He no longer sees all the little cumulative evils that the Republic tolerates and fosters. from slavery to endless wars, and he never asks, why are we not acting to stop this? Live alongside corruption for too long, and you no longer notice the stench. The Jedi cannot help the slaves of Tatooine, but they can help the slave masters. That's basically, this idea that, I think that's very good. And apparently that's sort of why, partly why Dooku ends up leaving the Jedi Order, and then I suppose sometime after that joining the Sith, is because he thinks that the Order's bullshit and it's corrupt and it's political, which he's 100% right.
Yeah, definitely correct.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with all this. Like, we talked about this in episode 2. Dooku seems really cool for the first half of episode 2, where he's like, he gets to Obi-Wan and he's like, hey, there's a fucking Sith Lord there. None of you notice because your head's too far up your own ass. You're corrupt. You're shit. And I was like, yeah, like, I fucking love this guy. And then within half of the movie, he just turns into, like, cartoon villain Sith Lord.
Yeah, it's kind
and
of
he's like that for the whole... Yeah, he's like it for the whole Clone Wars TV show as well. Like, he's boring as shit in the Clone Wars TV show because he's just an evil, like, Sith Lord who, like, betrays all of his followers when they don't do well. And it's like, that's so, like, just so obviously less interesting than a guy... Like, the guy who said this quote is a fascinating character I would love to see more of. And I'm just totally disappointed that Dooku so quickly turns into a Sith as opposed to actually being a Jedi who, like,
was disenfranchised.
Just shitting on them. Yeah.
I do like the one bit in the Clone Wars that I found really interesting. I really like the arc where Palpatine is like, nah, you have to get rid of Ventress. And he's like, but I don't want to. I like her. And he kind of half-asses it. Yeah. I thought that was a good arc.
Well, yeah, that's because Dooku's only in it for like that one episode, then it's mostly about Ventress.
Yeah.
She's cool.
She's cool.
You like it because it's a Ventress arc, not
She still doesn't. Nobody's brought her back. I still don't know what happened to her. I'm still PO'd about it. They need to bring her into the Mandalorian with everybody.
I was thinking about this a moment ago because I remember Ventress from Clone Wars, but when I try and think back to it, she's voiced by Karen Gillan in my head, and I think that's just because Karen Gillan plays Nebula in the Guardians of the Galaxy films.
I was about to say, Ventress just looks kind of like Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy.
She's not actually voiced by Karen Gillan.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, cool. I just wanted to check while we were talking about Ventress.
Because you also got very confused about Bo-Katan.
Yeah, I did. I thought Bo-Katan was Gwendolyn Christie. I got Gwendolyn Christie mixed up with
Katie Sackhoff.
Katie Sackhoff, that's it.
That was why we lost 10 minutes.
It was a real confusing time.
Because Gwendolyn Christie was in Star Wars. She was in the sequels. So I think that's also where some of the confusion came from.
Yes.
Anyway, so after this, Obi-Wan goes to... or did you have more to say about Yoda?
I mean, I guess not specific. I feel like, honestly, I don't feel like I have anything to say on top of Dooku's quote about Yoda. I feel like that just sums it up perfectly. But it also just kind of makes it obvious how much more potential there is in the Star Wars universe that these movies just squander. Because the movies barely kind of address that Yoda realizes he's a shit.
Well, that's why I think they actually do lend themselves so much more to TV shows. It's like if you tried to do Game of Thrones as a movie, like it wouldn't have worked half as well, and you would be sitting there being like, and like Harry Potter movies and stuff, you sit there as like a book reader or something, just being like, there's so much stuff that doesn't get touched on, whereas when you do a TV show, you can really like delve into a lot more, I think.
That's fair.
I think that's why Star Wars is moving towards probably more TV shows, like kind of one-off movies. Anyway, let's not get me talking about Star Wars TV shows again for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I watched Mandalorian, Georgia. You can't keep going on about it.
And how good was
Georgia,
it?
we watched Mandalorian.
It was good.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You liar, Elliot.
Elliot, you just need to watch the episode where there's a frog lady and Baby Yoda eats all of her frog babies.
Oh, it's such a good episode.
It's hilarious.
Do you know in this, like, you know, there's the one where he first starts eating the eggs. Apparently in the next episode, he was supposed to, like, there was all these, because it was a really short episode, there was like another 5 minutes allegedly of like egg-related shenanigans that got cut because too many people like tweeting about Baby Yoda committing genocide and shit.
It is 100% Baby Yoda commits a bit of light genocide in one episode.
But it's funny because he's cute.
Yeah.
gotta watch it, Elliot. It's so good.
It's next on my list.
Anyway, so after this, Obi-Wan goes to some planet that who knows the name of? None of us, apparently.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, who gives a shit? And he goes to find Grievous, which he does, and then he kills him.
And he rides this cool fucking dinosaur monster, and it makes the coolest sounds.
I'm pretty sure it's a lizard.
The second that thing appeared on screen, I was like, "Oh, I remember this. This is the whoop, like dinosaur thing."
It does make a cool sound. Cool. Yeah, and there's like a sort of running thing, I think, through like a lot of Clone Wars and stuff that Obi-Wan's always like very good at. And like I think in the second movie, and he ride that thing on what's the name of the planet where the clones are made?
Geonosis.
Yeah, Geonosis. Does he ride that thing in the water, or is that in a Clone Wars episode? I can't remember. But he always like rides animals, and he's really good at like using the Force to like commune with animals and stuff. I really like that. It's a cool Force power.
So I'm just sitting here proud that I remembered the name Geonosis.
Good on you, Elliot.
Congrats.
That's me. Yeah. I honestly never noticed the Obi-Wan is good with animals thing, but I guess it makes sense. He's a pretty chill dude.
Which is kind of that cool thing, like that people have different like Force powers that they're good at, which I kind of like. It makes it the like sort of OP Force powers a little bit more interesting, because it's like, yeah, there's heaps of shit you can do, but some people are good at some bits and some are good at different bits.
What I also want to talk about, speaking of people being not good at bits, Grievous has 4 lightsabers and Obi has 1. How? Like, I just can't believe that Obi-Wan holds him off.
I do think though that Grievous is not supposed to have Force powers where Obi-Wan does. So Obi-Wan can kind of, to some, like he can sort of predict what Grievous is going to do just before he does them. But still, but to some degree, you can't avoid. Yeah, you can't. You also can't necessarily avoid 4 lightsabers coming at you from 4 different angles. It looks really fucking cool, though.
Yeah, where Grievous does this like spinny thing, with 2 of the lightsabers to just use the other 2 and kind of own the territory. That was pretty cool. Again, Grievous looks cool, sounds cool. Shame they didn't do anything with him.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
But he gets defeated how all villains in Star Wars get defeated, with their hands being chopped off.
You pointed that out, and I couldn't believe I've never noticed it before, but you're right. Like, so many people get their fucking hands chopped off in this series.
That's how lightsaber battles are decided, with hand chopping off. If you can, like, protect your hands from being chopped off, you'll win. You'll be an undefeatable Jedi.
It's very true. The idea of just getting just a little bit of Beskar just to cover up your wrist joints.
Yeah. Just a tiny little wristband of Beskar on each hand, and you're safe.
It's too powerful.
It's too much.
Forget having bad dreams where you see the future. Beskar wrist guards are where it's up.
So then we go back to Coruscant, where Palpatine invites Anakin into his lair, his dungeon lair, and tells him all about how cool it is to be a Sith. And Anakin should definitely join the dark side. They have cookies.
This dungeon lair is ridiculous because it's so clearly the room of a villain. Like, it's all black and grey. It's got these like grey pillar statue things in it. And it's ridiculous that Anakin doesn't immediately see that Palpatine is a villain from this.
Also, I think we've been in that room before. And once you pointed that out, I was like, did it always have that same decor? Because I feel like it used to not be as bad. Oh, okay, maybe it was.
Sometimes, I think we usually go there during the day.
Yeah, actually, the daytime.
Sunlight makes it like look a little bit less dank.
That is, that might be it.
But during the night time, it's absolutely a fucking villain lair.
But you know, I was just thinking, because this whole note of like Palpatine being clearly evil, are there people you guys have ever met in real life who you kind of have that feeling where you go like, this person is like terrifying? Yeah, like this person is obviously a bad person. Because I don't know if I've ever really had that.
I have one. You know them, Georgia. I'm not going to say their name. But I went to school with them.
Oh.
Man,
yeah, you'll have to PM me later.
This sounds like such good gossip.
Yeah. Because I feel like they were like, you know, teachers and stuff probably that, you know, growing up, and you just take one look at them and be like, I don't want to get on the wrong side of that teacher. Like, it is kind of true. There are people you just go, oh. He just texted me the name. He killed my guinea pig. This kid. He was definitely a Sith Lord.
I forgot about that. I wasn't even remembering the time he murdered one of our
He
pets.
murdered one of my guinea pigs.
Anyway, that said, as much as Palpatine is like dressed like a villain, he then admits.
Sorry, keep
What?
going. Oh, there was one scene where when he was talking to Anakin and being like, I beg you, use my knowledge. I just was looking, his sleeves are so puffy. Like he has these big puffy sleeves. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous outfit in all of Star Wars. Like he looks so silly. It suddenly just hit me that I was like, he looks really silly.
Yeah, but like, okay. He admits, he's like, hey, I'm dressed like a silly villain. Anakin, I am a silly villain.
I am the silly villain you've been looking for the whole series.
Yeah. But doesn't he make so much sense? Like, there's this real vibe. Like, we talked about how, like, kind of clueless and heartless the Jedi are. And, like, because that's a big thing, is honestly, Anakin has this conversation with Palpatine, and I was like, honestly, I think by the end of this conversation, I would have bought into his bullshit and taken his side too. And Anakin doesn't even do that yet. We'll get to that, but it's like Anakin still says no. But I was like, Palpatine makes so much more sense than the Jedi ever have.
Well, that's what, because Hannah was watching it with me, at least for this bit, and was saying like one of the things I really like about Revenge of the Sith is that I actually think this is one of the few kind of like falls from grace in a film that is done sort of believably. I mean, when I was younger, I don't think I understood all of the kind of stuff around it, but when you really look at it, like, yeah, it is believable because actually, like, the Sith aren't totally wrong. Like, Palpatine isn't totally wrong. You've had the whole Dooku thing the whole time, and also the Jedi aren't actually that good, and they actually do start to really like plant that seed in this movie with the whole asking Anakin to spy thing. And then there's, I like how they add in that thing of Anakin being so worried about Padme dying in childbirth, and that Palpatine just hones right in on that and goes like, I could help you with that. So obviously that, and the idea of Anakin kind of falling to the dark side basically because he's carries so much fear, and like he's sort of he loves too strong, like he can't ever like let go of stuff. And I think they actually nailed that. Like Palpatine's really like, I can help you with that one thing that's really, really worrying you. And then, we're getting a bit ahead of myself in that kind of next scene. But yeah.
I think there's still for me a little bit of the like insta slide into Sithing, like we talked about with Dooku. Like there's still a little bit of like him being like, oh, I did one bad thing and I want to save my wife. Better go like genocide a bunch of kids. Which just still like it's just a bit of like there's a few moments where I'm like, okay, this is just a wild escalation, Anakin. Like you have to know better than this.
I don't know, because like it reminds me of I'm not going to pretend to have fully memorized this Macbeth quote this many years out of high school, but there's that scene where he's talking about how like he's stepped into it so far that it would be harder to go back to being good than it is to just cross all the way through to being bad. Again, I'll look up the quote. Do you guys know Macbeth? Anyway, there's a very good quote that very applicable right here.
I've never seen Macbeth.
Oh, okay, well,
I don't know.
Well, I'll look up this quote for you, but it's very much like that, and I don't know. I feel like it's hard to relate to being in such a like desperate situation when you live like a cushy first world life, but I don't know. I've definitely been in situations where I've been like very stressed and stuff, and I've done something that then later I've thought, I can't believe I did that. Like I would not normally have done that, but I was so worried about this thing, or so like stressed in the moment, in the heat of the moment, that I did something that I never would have thought I would otherwise do. I don't know. I think it's an element of that.
I think there's a lot of good here. I mean, really, because that's the thing. Like the reason this movie is better than the other two, and it's like there's a bunch of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is that this whole trilogy was basically founded on the premise: let's talk about how a kid turns into Darth Vader. And this is the movie that actually gets to do that part. like episode 1 was, hey, here's a kid. episode 2 was, he's pretty like emo now, and then episode 3 gets to be like, and now he actually turns into the villain. This is the cool shit that you've all been waiting for. And I think as much as I still probably have little problems with those moments where it feels like it escalates too quickly, like overall I think the delivery is pretty solid. Of like, you can see why Palpatine has got his claws in, why Anakin is willing to cross lines for Padme. Like, it all, as you know, even if bits of the execution weren't there in the earlier movies, like it does kind of come together pretty solidly.
Well, then we kind of flick to the next scene in which Anakin does actually snitch on Palps to Samuel L. Jackson, otherwise known as Mace Windu. And so they go with a little posse of Jedi to try and defeat him, which goes terribly. But then just as Mace is about to defeat Palps, Anakin turns up. And I think this is a really good scene in regards to what we were just talking about, because, you know, Anakin doesn't walk in there and be like, I've decided to be a Sith. Like, I'm pretty sure he's actually walked in there deciding that he doesn't want to be a Sith. But then Mace is like, well, I'm going to kill Palpatine. But Anakin's like, oh, I kind of need him alive to help save Padme. And then Mace is like, what? You got to be kidding me. We clearly have to kill this man, which he's kind of right.
Yes. Yeah,
but
for sure
Anakin's also right. He's like, he should probably have a trial. Like, you're sort of like, they're both making very good points here. And basically, Samuel L. Jackson goes to kill him, and Anakin, in the heat of the moment, is kind of like, oh shit, no, like, I need this guy. And then he accidentally kind of kills Mace Windu. And then I still think they do it believably, because he doesn't just go, oh, well, I guess I'm a baddie now. Like, he sort of sits there for a bit. He's like, oh my God, I just killed Mace Windu. Oh my God, what have I done? And then Palpatine just kind of talks him into it. And it's like, again, I just think of that Macbeth quote, which I just sent you guys. And he's just kind of like, well, I guess I'm in it now. All I want now, I've screwed up everything. I guess all I have now is that I could potentially save Padme. So I'm just going to do whatever this guy says. And I'm just, now my only goal is to try and save Padme, because I'm clearly not a Jedi anymore. Like, all the Jedi are dead. Just like, forget about even trying to be good. I'm just going to try and save Padme, which I think is believable, personally.
I think it would be believable. I think the part that doesn't quite work for me is Palpatine is basically blasting Samuel L. Jackson with lightning, full-on lightning, and his face is like melting to reveal his evil face underneath. And Anakin's still just kind of like, I'll still choose the evil side. I don't know.
It's like the evil, what is it, the evil witch from
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, that's the one. Yeah. I'm melting.
Yeah, no, legit.
That's totally what he's like. Yeah, but he's clearly been bad the whole time. I don't think Anakin's not going to suddenly start worrying about whether Palpatine looks evil, because that's been an issue for 10 years now.
I do want to say, so there's a scene before Anakin decides to go visit, like, Mace trying to kill Palpatine. And this scene goes for like 3 minutes, and it just flickers between Anakin and Padme looking into space in the sunset. And it's a very beautiful scene, but I have no idea what the fuck it like, why? You know,
yeah, it's kind
do you
of
know
random.
The scene I'm talking about?
I do, because the song is Padme's Ruminations, which is a really beautiful song. Props to
again,
mighty John Williams. But I think it's supposed to be like, I think Anakin is sitting there being like, oh, which is more important to me? Am I going to be like am I more with the Jedi? Do I care more about Padme? Like, what am I willing to do? And I think Padme's sitting there. From memory, I think this is after the scene where Palpatine has declared himself emperor, but that might be wrong. But I think she's really worried about politics. And also, I think Anakin's been having nightmares, bad dreams, for like a long time. And she probably can see him falling apart a bit. So I think she's just having a bit of a cry about all that. I think it's just supposed to show that they're both very like stressed and upset.
And
that they're trying to decide like what. I don't think it's supposed to have any big particulars.
Very long scene.
It goes for a while, but I think they're trying to show off the soundtrack because it's a very good song.
That's fair. Like, yeah, again, I was just sitting there the whole time and I was like, visually, this is incredible. And yeah, like audially, this is incredible. But like, why? What is it doing?
I think maybe just mood setting as well. Do you think like just showing that everybody's like things are not going well for our characters? They're all very upset.
I didn't need a scene to tell me that, though. It was all the like the rest of the movie had already established that fairly well.
Yeah, true.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
I'll
I
stop
think that's
moving.
true.
Also, why did Mace Windu, Samuel L. Windu, bring these other Jedi? He brought some fucking bottom tier Jedi to this
Kit
fight with
Fisto
Palpatine.
Yeah, was
is
one of them
not
Kit
bottom
Fisto?
tier. Excuse me. That is Kit
Yeah.
Fisto dying there.
I don't care what his name is. He's bottom tier because he lasts maybe 2 seconds against Palpatine.
Elliot, that's
Yeah, but
Kit
Palpatine's
Fisto's
really
voiced by
OP.
Phil Lamar. Okay, Hermes Conrad. He's brilliant.
Oh, that guy, the guy with
Yeah,
the like
the guy
tentacles
with
on
the
his
like
head.
The guy
dreadlocks. That's Kit
who
Fisto.
almost killed Grievous.
Well, he clearly spent
Yeah, I
5 years
know.
off.
He clearly has not been keeping up his training because he's cut down in one hit.
I think it's supposed to be showing that Palpatine is very good, not that they're very shit, but it kind of looks like they're really shit.
They just do badly.
They do he wipes the floor with them very quickly. But I really like
I'd like it
Palpatine's
more-
fighting style is like very like sort of like crouching, like animalistic kind of. I'm
Yeah.
just watching that. I was like, I don't remember him being this like cool. Like the way he moves is really cool. I like the way they've done it. He looks really like quick and scary and agile.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of when you see Yoda fight. Honestly,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
a similar vibe. Which, you know, if this was a better work, I'd think was some sort of intentional mirroring. I don't know. I had a problem with this. I think I talked about this in episode 2. It's hard to come back and watch the live action lightsaber fights after watching the animated shows because they're so much cooler in that. Like Palpatine does some lightsaber fights in various points in the Clone Wars, and in those he dual wields and he fucking jumps 20 feet in the air while like throwing boomerang lightsaber bullshit around, and that's just like, you're never going to match that in live action.
Yeah, very true. That's one of the best things about the animated Star Wars is just the lightsaber fights are just so much better because they can
Yeah.
just choreograph them better.
And like I remember like the last time I watched episode 4 just being so incredibly disappointed with the duel between Vader and Obi-Wan because I watched episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Did you see my link to the YouTube video of the like remastered
No, because I'm
one?
recording a fucking podcast.
Yeah, but no, but did you see that I sent you the link? You don't have to watch it.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, okay. We'll watch that later. I think you'll like it.
But yeah, but you know what I mean? Like you go back and watch episode 4 and it looks like two old men like playing with rusty swords, which it is. Like, you know, I'm not going to necessarily criticize the actors because it's like, what else can you do? But it's like that's sort of my point is like the CGI elevates episodes 1, 2, and 3 well above where the old ones were. And then the animated shows just skyrocket above them again.
Because I'm sure we've already touched on this as something, but I know, Elliot, you've now seen the end of Clone Wars, but that last arc on the Siege of Mandalore and the fight between Ahsoka and Maul is like so good.
Oh, it's really good.
Just really good action. But they motion captured that as well. I guess that's cool. The trick is having like a mix of like motion capture, but then with the animation where you can like really make it look believable.
I was surprised on the whole by how well some of the CGI in this stood up. Like a lot of it stood up really well. I think the bits that didn't work were maybe the fight with Dooku, where he's like flipping around and you look at that old ass man's body and you think that shouldn't be doing that. That makes no sense.
That's not how physics works.
Yeah, but other than that, I think it held up remarkably well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like all the shots of spaceships and stuff still looked really good.
And the aliens just always look very good.
Yeah.
So basically after that, Palp sends his new apprentice, who he's called Vader, and it is kind of presented as like it's supposed to be this big revelation, but anyway, he sends him off to kill all of the younglings in the temple. Meanwhile, Palpatine executes Order 66.
Execute Order 66.
So do you guys think Order 66 is called that because it's like 666, like the devil's number?
I've sort of always just assumed that, but I never really thought about it.
Yeah, I am the same. I've always assumed that is an absolute yes.
Can't think where else.
Interestingly, I know I never really. This wasn't ever really based on anything, but I always kind of assumed Order 66 was like, you know, the clone troopers. Their minds get wiped. They immediately just start blasting at Jedi, like their minds have been completely taken over. But in the film, it just kind of looks like it was just an order that they're like chill and happy to comply with, which I was really surprised by. I'm surprised that they are just so willing to turn on the Jedi.
So it's explained in the Clone Wars. I'll try and just like summarize it briefly, but basically, just a small faction of the Geonosians were kind of paid off by the Sith or whatever to plant these. So the clones have these inhibited chips, which are like little chips that are supposed to basically make them a bit more compliant. But then secretly, they've also programmed them with this Order 66 thing, so that when they get told execute Order 66, it kind of overrides their whole personality and gets them to just kill off the Jedi.
So basically, the answer to your question is yes, it kind of is mind control, but the Clone Wars kind of retcon that to be the case because that's the only way it makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Because it really didn't... It seemed very strange. They were just like, all right, let's do it, guys. Turn your guns to point 45 degrees to the left and shoot these guys instead. And it was just like, cool, chill, all right. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, it obviously doesn't make sense. The one they did in this movie doesn't make sense because these aren't robots, they're clones, right? But I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of loosely explained, I guess.
It's just a shame because they do establish that Obi-Wan has a pretty good relationship with one of his clones in here. And it's sort of like, this is my friend clone. And then that guy doesn't hesitate to order the shot on Obi-Wan like half an hour later. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think this is why people enjoy things like the Clone Wars so much. It's because the Clone Wars has that freedom to actually explore these things and then retcon them so they still kind of make sense. Like, the Clone Wars can say, oh yeah, here is a clone, they are a character, they get on with Obi-Wan, and so it had to be mind control that they killed them. Like, it has that freedom to actually expand on the lore, make it more human, and then explain why it makes sense.
Fair enough.
So after this, Anakin stops by at Padme's after killing all of the kids, just to see how she's going before he heads off for his second massacre, and off he goes to Mustafa.
Which is like, that's just somebody with an accent saying most afar, right? Like,
well, also, I
the
always thought
whole
it was just
point of this
like
planet.
Mustafa, but for some reason Palpatine is like Mustafa. Like, he says it real weird.
That's just because that's how he talks.
Yeah, true.
But you know, like it's just because the whole point of Mustafa is that it's really out of the way. So I just can't help but see most afar. Like, I mean, it looks incredible. The planet, like visually, like it's the lava planet that everyone knows about. Like Reuben hadn't even seen this movie, and the second it came on screen, he was like, "Oh, is this the high ground planet?
This is the high ground planet.
This is the meme place." Yeah. So the thing that immediately occurred to me is with midichlorians being like a particle that can be detected, that they're therefore a physical thing. I immediately started being curious because we know Anakin. I mean, I wrote here falls into a volcano because that's what I thought happens, but that's not really what happens.
Yeah.
I think that might be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, yeah, but like when he gets all burned up, does that affect his midichlorians? Should that affect his midichlorians, or are they like intangible more than that?
So I've been thinking about this since you brought it up as well. I wonder, is it like, blood cells or something? Like, does your body just produce more of them or something? Are they produced in the body, or do they come from outside the body? I don't know anything about midichlorians.
Is your midichlorian...
I would like to propose that Reuben is correct and that Vader has less midichlorians, and that's why he's really shit and boring after.
That makes sense.
Oh, but you know what? Because actually, no, Elliot, you're going to hate me, but in The Mandalorian, because like they're sort of harvesting Baby Yoda's midichlorians, but he seems to replenish them. So I think that they must be replenishable.
Oh, yeah.
Like he doesn't become weaker after they take it out of his blood somehow. So they obviously live in people's blood, I guess, which is why maybe I'm thinking they're like blood cells. But then he seems to get them back. So I think they probably do come back. But also Anakin doesn't really have... Oh, no, he does have blood, I guess, probably.
Probably Anakin has blood.
I mean, yeah.
He's got enough body parts. Actually, he's just lost a couple. He's just lost his limbs.
He's
does
not.
still
He's
have
not
blood.
Grievous. He's still got. He's just like badly fucked up.
Yeah.
I think it's taken me these two movies, but the thing that really I dislike about Star Wars, I think, is there's no scarcity of resources in this world, right? Or there is when it wants them to be, but effectively both sides can just make unlimited clones and droids, and it feels like for some reason they're locked in a stalemate because they both can just produce infinite soldiers. I don't know. It just makes all these battles feel pointless to me.
Well, I think there is supposed to be a thing that I mean they do. It's harder to make clones, and clones are slower to produce than droids. But the idea is that the clones are higher quality soldiers. So, and they kind of go into that a little bit in the Clone Wars. Like, there's this whole arc where they're trying to decide whether to make more clones, and Padme's like against it. She's like, no, we shouldn't make more clones. We should just try and finish the war. But I do like that idea that I guess the Separatists go for quantity over quality. Like, the battle droids are pretty shit. That they have,
you take that
they
back.
can produce shitloads of them really quickly, whereas the clones have to be like trained and their growth accelerated, but they still take like several years or whatever to like grow and train. So I guess they are more finite of a resource, but still,
theoretically, it never feels like they're gonna run out of clones.
No, exactly.
No, I mean, wait, this is the thing. Like, the economy of the Star Wars galaxy always seems like nonsense to me because, yeah, you're right. Like, sometimes there's fucking trade blockades and, there are Clone Wars things that's like, oh, we got to go to Mandalore because they're having trade problems. But, like, it feels very much like, okay, today we want there to be some sort of problem where they can't get enough wheat. And so we'll make up an excuse why they can't have wheat. And then other times it's like, oh yeah, we don't really have any problem building 1,000,000 billion droids. Like, that's easy.
Maybe droids are really expensive, really cheap, but food is really expensive. I don't know.
Yeah, because you know what else is like crazy when you think about it is that they've got like this whole war that happens. This Clone War is like based off of these two like political factions, disagreeing or whatever. But like all of the soldiers basically are things that have been created solely for this war. Like, there's the battle droids and the clones, which never had a place in the world before this, basically, and have no place in the world after. And then all of the collateral damage affects people. It's kind of a crazy concept.
Yeah.
And that's why the Clone Wars is constantly going out of its way to like have refugees from the war and stuff, because it's the only way that they can have characters who are affected by the war.
Yeah. I like when they have arcs that have like just conflicts happening on like our planet. Like, when they introduce Saw Gerrera and stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, there are like just small factions of people having like their own sort of civil wars on their own planets and stuff. Makes it sort of much more interesting.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, again, this is like another thing. Like, Episode 8 did this. Like, Episode 8 took that huge thing where they went to like the racetracks, and then they were like, "Oh, there's war profiteering, and that's why the galaxy isn't stable." And I just found that whole arc incredibly boring because it was sort of like, don't try and make the economy of Star Wars like something that is like,
don't try to explain
a
this
thing, because it's not.
Yeah.
Like the galactic economy is just nonsense, and like trying to introduce it as this core part of what Rian Johnson wanted the sequel trilogy to be. I was like, that's doomed to fail, I think. And
you could try and do
luckily,
it if you
JJ
tried to
saved
do
us.
it really well, but it wasn't really. They didn't have time to do that in a movie in a way that was believable.
Yeah, I mean, the Clone Wars, in my opinion, didn't achieve it. So, like, it was ambitious to think a movie could.
Yeah, 100%. So then Obi-Wan and Yoda meet up, and they see what Anakin did. They go into the security tapes, and only pain do they find. And then Yoda tries to fight Palpatine, but he loses. And then Obi-Wan accidentally kind of baits Padme into leading him to Anakin. Well, not accidentally, he does it intentionally.
Yeah. Okay. I almost had emotions from Yoda, and I was kind of surprised that this movie made me feel emotions, but it has some really strong emotional moments. Except Yoda, there's this line where Yoda's about to deliver an emotional line. I can't even remember what it was. But Yoda says it backwards, and you just can't take it seriously. It's fucking ridiculous.
Was
Why
it
does
the
he
one
talk
where
like that?
Palpatine's like, "Oh, this is the end of the Jedi" or something, and then Yoda goes, "Not if anything to say about it, I have."
Yeah,
That's
that's a terrible
it.
one.
And it's just
Oh.
and like the music crescendos, like it has everything going for it to be this really sick line, and just the Yodeism at the end just made it sound funny.
Yeah, no, it just ruined it. It just ruined it. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I did notice as we were watching, there seemed to be a correlation between how intense and emotional a scene was meant to be and how many memes I could already pick had come from it. Like, I'm hardly a regular prequel memer, but there was still so many lines in this movie where I was like, oh, that's a prequel meme. That's a prequel meme. And they
Yes.
correlated a lot with, like, what was meant to be an intense and emotional
I
scene.
think this is the part where our sort of our idea of taking a drink every time there was a meme started to really spiral out of control, because like just this whole kind of last half hour of the movie is basically just memes.
Yeah. I think Ruben brought up the point that, like, it's because the emotional moments in this movie actually kind of work, and
Yeah.
that emotion leads to people making memes from them.
Yeah, like these moments stick
Absolutely.
in your head because they are really strong emotional moments, right? Like there's this bit where we'll get to the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin is genuinely so emotional. Like Obi-Wan's delivery of some of these lines, like, and the most memey lines, like "You were the chosen one," "You were my brother," etc., etc. You can feel this really powerful emotion coming from Obi-Wan. It genuinely affected me.
Yeah. And like the bit
Yeah.
where there's a big joke in the fandom of like you know, when Anakin goes to kill the younglings, and it's like you know, when somebody watches it and it's like somebody crying, and it's like when a prequel memer watches it and they're laughing. But I want to say, like, I've seen a lot of memes, but that scene still gets me when Anakin ignites his lightsaber with all the little kids there. You're like,
Well, because
don't do it.
the little boy comes up and he's like, Master Skywalker, what are we going to
He's
do?
so
There's
cute,
too
and you're like,
many of
oh my
them.
god, I can't believe you're gonna kill this kid. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it
it's pretty
still gets
brutal.
me every time. There's some great
Because it's
reaction
not like,
videos of that scene of like people like, this is the first time my girlfriend is watching Star Wars, and then it's like, Master Skywalker, what are we going to do? And then his lightsaber ignites and it pans over to some chick sitting there being like, "Ah!" It's so good because you're like, it's full on, man. And then the whole rest of the movie, I agree, it's like quite, I think they really nail it. Like you really do feel genuinely upset about Anakin's betrayal of all his friends and family.
did you know that moment was coming, Ruben?
Where he murders the children, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, damn.
It's too
That would have been
memed.
great to get.
Yeah, no, it is
Oh,
too
yeah.
memed.
As an internet denizen, you're too well aware of it.
Yeah, soz.
Yeah, but I really liked that that insight into the fact that the really powerfully emotional moments are actually the most heavily memed ones. I hadn't really noticed that, but I was like, oh, it's so true, actually.
Yeah, well, it's what makes them stick in people's minds, right?
Mm.
Sorry, I wanted to read out this quote from Yoda. So, Palpatine's just pulled Order 66 and says, I've waited for a long time for this moment, my little green friend. At last, the Jedi are no more. And Yoda says, not if anything to say about it, I have. At an end, your rule is, and not short enough was it. If so powerful you are, why leave? Which, like, that would be such a great line if it was delivered normally, but Yoda fucks it up, and so it's terrible.
It's kind of true.
Yeah. So there's this bit where they're in the Senate room or whatever, and Palpatine's just like cackling maniacally and using his dark magic to throw like tables and benches and at people and shit. And it made me think like, surely this is enough to ruin any shot at legitimate being an emperor that Palpatine has. Like, I know he rules by force and shit, but like, he's clearly a villain. How is he just like chill as the emperor for 20 years or whatever after this? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like in the current political climate, it's so much more believable than it ever previously was.
True, that's true. Yeah. Do you guys think if
that's
Trump
a depressing thought.
was caught shooting lightning out of his hands and cackling, would he lose the support of the Republican Party? I don't know.
I think the people who are
Yeah,
still
no, I don't think
supporting
he
Trump
would.
would be more impressed. And I think
Yeah.
everybody who doesn't like him would just
Oh.
be as disappointed.
Mm.
So no.
You're right. I actually don't really think it would move the scales
Wasn't
much,
there,
and that's a
didn't
fucking
Trump
depressing
himself
thought.
say at one point, he was like, I could just shoot somebody on the street and nobody would
Yes,
care. And
he
it was like,
did.
fuck, you're so right.
Yes, he did.
And the fact that he's aware of that was even more terrifying. That was like before he was even elected, I'm pretty sure.
God damn.
Let's go back to Star Wars politics, which is much more fun than real world
Yes,
politics
much
because they're
nicer.
scary and sad now.
Evil Anakin, before he becomes Darth Vader, really worked for me. He was great. Just this broody, fucked up, sad, crying villain. It was awesome.
Again, like every single Sith, except for Maul and Palpatine, he's so much more fascinating before he actually finishes becoming a Sith.
I guess that's kind of the end of their arc, isn't it? Like where they kind of descend into being a baddie.
The problem is Anakin appears in so many other fucking shows and movies after his arc finishes.
Well, I find that really interesting that that like especially you, Reuben, as kind of a like newish watcher, really like that side of Anakin, because I think when this came out, one of the things that people really didn't like was that Vader was like this really popular villain who was like super scary and badass, and then people didn't like that he was kind of a sort of broody, like, you know, emotional, simpy kind of type. And a lot of people really hated that. Whereas I think now it's something that's
so realistic.
Makes it so much, yeah, exactly.
And he's a human being. He's a very flawed human being, and that makes him a much more compelling villain because he's got emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like you see him, and you, even though he's doing this heinous shit, you can't help but kind of feel for him because he's just so fucked up.
Like when he's going to kill the younglings, he doesn't look excited about it. He looks like he doesn't want to do it, which makes it worse. You're like, oh God, he just really wants to save Padme this much, apparently.
Yeah.
Or even worse than killing the younglings, he then shuts down the separatist droids.
Tragic.
Like, which is just like, you know, that's when you know there's no coming back from this. Like,
because now Elliot can't get his TV show.
I could have forgiven killing the younglings, but that was just like fucking like Anakin. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the bit where when he kills, and you know, before he shuts down the battle droids, and he's like killing all of the separatist leaders who, like, you know, Palpatine told Dooku to send, not Dooku, told Grievous to send all of them to Mustafar just so Anakin could go kill them all, and that one guy is just like, but he promised us peace, and then Anakin just like chops his head off or something. And you're like, oh, it's just such a good little reminder, even in a film that didn't really go that much into the idea of the separatists being, they just right at that last moment kind of show you it's like these weren't the baddies the whole, like you thought they were kind of the baddies the whole time, but these were just people who also just wanted peace. They just had different ideas. You're like, oh, he just goes and like kind of everybody loses. Both sides had good and they both lost. It's very sad. Okay. So then Padme turns up on Mustafar and she confronts Anakin, and then as he starts choking her, Obi-Wan sort of does this big dramatic exit from the ship.
He has such a power pose.
Does.
There's this shot of him standing on the top of the ship, the ramp to the ship.
He's doing like
in the biggest fucking power
full
pose.
like Superman power pose. And then the two ex-BFFs have their big fight.
And so worth pointing out, you mentioned Anakin and Padme don't make up because Anakin finally finds the line that Padme won't cross. There's finally she has a turn off, and that is apparently being co-galactic rulers.
Again, this is a very good scene. Like, I think the emotion is really high in this scene, and actors do a very good, like, I think Natalie Portman does such a good job in this scene. I really like it. Like, she's trying so hard to be like, no, you're just confused. And then he keeps going. She's just suddenly like, oh God, no, you're not confused. Yeah.
Now, in the notes here, we've written Magic High. Apparently, I wrote at some point Magic High 5. I really don't remember what this is in reference to.
It's in the fight scene where they both try to force push each other, and then they just kind of
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it looks like they're about to high five or hug or something. That's right, good times.
Because there's actually an interesting part. I think I didn't type this in the thing, but I was discussing it with Hannah because there's this one bit, and I sent you guys a GIF recently where Anakin and Obi-Wan are just like swirling their blades around each other, but they're not hitting anything. And it's like always been a bit of a joke. And then recently this dude posted a video, and it's a guy who's like a fencer, and he's talking about how it's actually a fencing move. I can't remember what it's called. But where you like circle your opponent's blade, and how it's like a legitimate technique, and that it's also one that you can only do to an opponent that you know very well, and this whole big defense of it. And I was sitting there watching, and I was like, this is why I fucking love Star Wars. This fencing dude sitting here analyzing this fight scene from Revenge of the Sith. This is great. This is so good.
I mean, definitely the highlight of Star Wars, I think we've talked about this before, is how the fandom does its best to try and make it make sense.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I was like, this one's very good. This guy's an actual fencer. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, like, because my sort of headcanon is that the Force pushes actually get used in lightsaber fights a lot more. It's just more subtle, and that's why, like, those guys who got killed by Palpatine, like, a few seconds in, maybe he was, like, Force holding their hands still or something, and that's why he was so easily able to stab them. That makes more sense to me. I'm joining in on the Star Wars fandom of inventing bullshit headcanon to make these movies make sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely have that where I sort of think, oh, there's probably like a nuance to fighting with the Force that, is not fully explained and that I don't fully bother to look into.
Yeah, but they don't act like there's any nuance to these fights. That's for sure.
It's true. Although the Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan, Dooku looks cool in that fight scene. Anyway, it's going way back. So anyway, we get to the end of the fight where Anakin loses because Obi-Wan has the high ground.
Whoa!
I said the name. And Obi-Wan leaves him for dead. But then Palps shows up and saves him and then puts him into his suit. And then he goes, no. It's really lame. It's kind of, it does, again, it really cuts the tension, doesn't it, when he goes, because, it's this big emotional thing where he's like, where's Padme? Is she safe? Is he all right? And he's like, it seems in your anger you killed her. And you're like, oh my God. And then he goes, no. And you're like,
It just goes for too long and it zooms out like a weird amount.
It's in a slightly weird voice as well. Like it feels like a comedy beat.
It is funny.
I think, is it meant to be a reference? Doesn't Luke kind of do that in episode 5 or something, like after he finds out Vader's his dad?
Yeah, no, he does. When he finds out that Vader's his dad, he goes, no, but it's not in such a weird voice.
It's not torn out. He just goes, no, it's not possible. Like he doesn't go, no.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
Because it's a good like 15-second no, I reckon. Like
I do like
it goes on for a while.
I do like after that though, and he's kind of then he gets this big Force like shake or whatever, and is ruining all this stuff around him and like showing off all his power, and Palpatine just starts smiling. He's like, excellent. I love that bit. It's like it's kind of just stirred him up.
Do you guys think it was a brilliant idea to have Grievous in this movie because it introduces the idea that people can survive with only a tiny little bit of their original humanity? Like it's actually kind of foreshadowing and setting up Anakin turning into Vader in a really great way.
Yeah, I want to believe that was the intention behind it, that there was some genius to this. I don't know if that's true, but it is a very good point. I never thought of that.
I'm going to headcanon it as true because you're right. It is a good connection.
All right. Headcanon it. It's been added
Speaking
to the
of headcanons, so saddened by all of what's happened, Padme gives birth and then just kind of dies of a fatal will to live deficiency.
Oh.
I mean, look, it's such a shocking ending. She basically dies of a broken heart. It feels like is what's happening here.
Yes.
And it's like, on the one hand, I was like, this is a fucking atrocious ending.
Mm.
But then I looked at like the anime love story as a whole, and I was like, it's kind of the ending it deserves.
I know, when you
to
pointed
be
that out,
fair.
I was like, that's very true. It's
in
fitting. It's
theme.
keeping in the quality of the love
Yeah.
story so far.
Yeah, like it's shocking, but like, what did we expect? Like, where else was it going?
Yeah, but there is an interesting, like a good theory, a like fan theory, and that's my headcanon, which is that, you know, Anakin has spent this whole movie trying to figure out how to get the power over life and death so that he can save Padme. And then, you know, there's this idea that basically as he's being turned into Darth Vader, and they have that really good scene where it's kind of flicking between him being made into Darth Vader and Padme kind of giving birth and dying. That, you know, he's kind of lying there thinking of Padme, and that he maybe actually does use the Force to somehow take away her life and put it into himself, and that's kind of how he survives. And that he steals her life, which is an excellent headcanon because, as we've just said, it just explains away all the silliness.
Yeah, that's another example of what we just mentioned, which is Star Wars fans trying to retroactively justify the things that are weird and nonsensical about these
but
films.
I like it too because it does fit in, like, sort of poetically, like this idea that he spent the whole movie trying to save Padme, but then maybe he actually gains that power that he's been looking for the whole time and then accidentally uses it to kill her. I really like that. I think it's very good. Because then when he wakes up, you know, and he's like, oh, is she all right? And Palpatine's like, well, no, you kind of killed her. Like, maybe he's not lying. Maybe he really did kill her.
He's not the lying type.
Yeah, Palpatine would never tell a lie.
Yeah, I mean, like, sure, why not? Like, the Force is just bullshit. Like, you know, I don't see any reason that can't be the case.
It's so much better than thinking she died of the big sad, so...
Is it?
Yes.
Like, her dying of the big sad is pretty funny.
It's sort of like also very, I don't want to be that oversensitive type, but it's kind of like a bit like sexist or something. I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah, there's like sexist undertones to their entire relationship.
Yeah. It just reminds me very much of when I was in year 8, we had to read this book in English called Walkabout, and there was sort of this idea that Native people in particular, like Indigenous people, you know, back in colonial times, would just kind of die because they didn't feel like living anymore. And it kind of featured in this book, and my teacher kind of saying how that was really racist. And I sort of feel like this is the same thing. I'm like, people like don't just die because they don't want to live anymore, I don't think. Anyway.
Okay, hear me out. Headcanon 2.0. So one of the things that's established, right, is that Luke and Leia are like even more powerful Force users than Anakin, right?
Yeah.
So if we're buying like the bloodline bullshit that Star Wars is super keen on, that like this shit's hereditary, where'd they get those extra midi-chlorians from? Answer: Padme. Padme, as she was giving birth, she had a Force vision because her babies, you know, the power of all three of them, all that Force. She had a vision of the future, and she saw that was the only way to turn Anakin around. So she died on purpose as part of her plan.
So, but Padme didn't have Force powers, so she didn't have lots of midi-chlorians?
Exactly.
No, she just didn't know about them. And again, she was pregnant with 2 super Force users, so like, you know, sharing blood with your babies, all the midi-chlorians going through, like, you know, maybe like, you know, you can get like pregnancy diabetes, you can get like pregnancy Force powers.
They cross the placenta, do they?
I mean, you're laughing at me, but like as if that makes less sense.
No, the problem with that one is that it's like that thing where people try to put too much science into a like sci-fi thing, and you go, "Oh no, you ruined it."
George started it, okay? I'm just picking up the pieces he threw on the ground.
A lot of our questions have come back to like, what is a midichlorian? Where does a midichlorian come from?
I think we've already like thought more about that than George Lucas ever did.
Yeah, probably.
No, yeah. I think, yeah, he definitely didn't worry about it too much.
So then Leia gets turned into a Disney princess. Luke gets to be a humble farm boy. So he definitely draws the short end of the straw. And then Obi-Wan and Yoda just kind of like fuck off to not help and do anything for a few decades. I think there's a line where they say, like, Yoda says something like, "Oh, we have to go into hiding until the time is right," or something. And Hannah and I were sitting there, we're like, "You hide for 20 years." Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is that what you were thinking in this moment?
Or, and hear me out on this one, fucking hell. Like, just...
That's, I think, one of the biggest, like, plot holes in Star Wars is this idea that there's still some Jedi hanging around after Order 66 and they just do, like, nothing.
Although...
Yeah.
That's the whole Jedi thing, Georgia. That's actually the most believable part ever. I'm changing. I'm doing a full 180 on this now. The concept of Yoda and a bunch of the other Jedi sitting on their fat asses and doing nothing for 20 years is actually incredibly in character.
Yeah, it is in character, isn't it? Frustratingly.
That's why I really love, like, Kanan from Rebels. Like, sorry, Reuben, you won't really know, but he's basically like a Padawan who survives, and then, you know, obviously he's not like a full blown Jedi, so he just kind of, anyway, he ends up like joining the rebellion, and it's so good because it's like, yeah, as if you wouldn't go do something. And he also actually has like attachments and emotions and uses them in a good way.
Yeah, he turns into what I would consider a healthy Jedi.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
He uses the Jedi powers in a way that connects with people that you just don't see in the prequels.
He's
or
like
in the Clone
actually
Wars.
one of the best. I remember seeing things like, this is why Kanan Jarrus is like the best Jedi ever. I was like, I mean, I like Kanan, but that's a hard sell. And then I read it. I was like, it's actually really true.
Yeah, maybe not the most powerful Jedi, but the best. Like,
yeah,
I'd be willing to buy that.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, he's actually a really good character. I really like Kanan.
Yeah. But, okay, so to go back to Luke and Leia, so I wonder what the sell was. So they give Luke to like his aunt and uncle, who we sort of met last movie.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how do you pitch that? If you're Obi-Wan and you're dropping off this kid, and it's like, hey, so listen, you know that like half brother or step brother or whatever you've got? He's now like an intergalactic like warlord, supreme leader, second in command.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to hide his son from him. And we thought, who better than the one person in the galaxy he's related to?
And who he knows where they are and who they are also. He's been there.
And also, he canonically has the ability to sense where his son is, kind of. So, good luck.
And they're like,
honestly, I kind of get the hiding him in plain sight with his family angle. That's kind of genius. I can buy that as a like 4D chess move. I just still don't understand why, if you were, is it Owen? Is Owen Uncle Owen? If I'm Owen and this person comes up and be like, hey, can you take care of this baby? Like, you know, the second in command of the evil regime of the Empire is really going to want him if he finds out he exists. In what world do you say yes?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So
like,
the only version of this that makes sense to me is that Owen was thinking, well, if Vader comes looking for him, I can just hand him over in exchange for my life, rather than say, oh, I knew where he was, but I said no.
I think the sell was where they went like, oh, Anakin is like, he hates sand, and your house is just surrounded by sand. I think he will never ever come here.
Oh, it makes so much sense. No, I think the plan genuinely was because Anakin didn't know that it was twins, right? As far as did he? I don't think he did.
I don't think so. No.
I think Anakin was meant to find Luke and kill him or whatever.
Oh my god!
And Leia was hidden separately to be like the other one. That Luke was the sacrificial lamb.
Oh my god!
Leia
now you
could
say
grow
that
up
is
to eventually
100% true.
Take him down.
I might flip those around. I suppose that wouldn't have been their thinking, but like I think Leia would have been much easier to track down if that was what Darth Vader was actually trying to do. Because like Organa was like best mates with Padme.
Yes, that's true. That does make sense.
Well, I think also when Padme,
you're right.
When Padme was like, you know, well, not buried, but like whatever, when she had like a funeral and stuff, she still has the big pregnant belly. I think the idea is that they were trying to imply that she had died while still pregnant and the baby's also died. Like, I think that was supposed to be the big cover up as well, was it? people weren't supposed to know that she'd actually given birth before she died.
Mm.
But then they call him Luke Skywalker, so I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, not the best plan,
Maybe not.
is it?
Because he wonders, like, did Darth Vader... I don't think he even knew he had a kid until somebody was like, oh, this guy called Luke Skywalker from Tatooine showed up. And he's like, oh, well, I guess that's my son.
Are the other ones aren't Skywalkers, are they? What are they? They've got a different name.
Yeah.
They're Owen and Baru or whatever.
Oh, I can't remember what... Yeah, but because it's not... They're not even blood related. Like, they're his... Like, they're Anakin's... Like, Owen is Anakin's stepbrother, I'm pretty sure. Or do we have this discussion? Like, is it stepbrother or half brother? I can't remember.
Either way.
Because I don't think Shmi is Owen's mum, but I'm not sure about that.
Shmi.
Shmi. It's such a dumb name.
Yeah, perfect way to end. He's reflecting on how stupid of a name Shmi is.
So I think the general verdict we seem to... This is definitely the best one of the trilogy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think I might have been giving Solo recency bias. I think I'd say this is the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I think so.
Just out of all of them.
Yeah.
I think so. It's definitely my favourite.
Episode 7's maybe the only one that could compete with it for me from like the main 9.
Empire Strikes Back? No, sorry.
No, 7, the first one of
the new
really?
The sequel trilogy. Yeah, the one it was just episode 4, but good.
Yeah. I like this one more, I think.
This one has more emotion.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's because basically this entire trilogy was built around doing the back half of this movie.
Yeah.
And so all they needed to do was not totally fuck it up, and it kind of works.
Good film. Can you guys imagine being Ian McDiarmid and playing the Emperor in 1977 in Star Wars 4, and then still playing this character in Episode 9, which just came out 41 years later? Like, that's fucking crazy to play one character over not 9, I guess, like 7 or whatever movies for 41 years.
Because that's the same for... So Chewbacca was played by Peter Mayhew in, I think, every single appearance of Chewie.
Oh, and what's his face for C-3PO?
C-3PO, yeah.
What's his face?
And R2-D2 was the same guy, but I think he maybe died before all the sequels came out.
Wasn't it Warwick Davis?
I don't think it was.
R2?
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. Warwick Davis was somebody else in some Star Wars, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Did he make a cameo in the Phantom Menace or something? Did we see him in the Phantom Menace?
I think so.
Kenny
and
Baker.
He was.
Kenny Baker died in 2016,
Ewoks.
so he must have just missed the sequels. When did the sequels come out?
Who can keep track?
Okay. So, yeah, I saw him in a quiz show, and he was talking about Star Wars, and I guess that's how I got confused. Jeez, he's in a bunch of roles. He was prolific in the sequel series.
Oh, really?
Wow. So much stuff.
In the Star Wars series, Davis has played more characters than any single actor to date.
Wow. Good on him.
Taking on 4 roles in 1999's The Phantom Menace.
Well, guys, we have another excellent name here. He was most notably the Ewok Wicket W. Warwick.
Oh, no. No, he wasn't.
He also played Weasel, spelled with a Z.
Oh my God,
I'm
guys,
looking at it and it's just Warwick Davis.
There's a picture of him playing one of the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. And he's so young. He's like a kid. He's adorable. I've only ever seen Warwick Davis when he was like old. He was so cute. He was this little kid. Let me send you this photo.
Okay, let me look up young Warwick Davis. Oh, wow. He looks a bit like Augustus Gloop. Whoever the actor is who played Augustus Gloop.
Look at him in his little Ewok costume.
Good on him.
So there's another person who's been involved since like the original trilogy.
Yeah. Was he a character in Episode 9?
Yeah, he was. So he's been in Episode 1, Solo, Rogue One.
He was in Episode 7.
Davis also briefly appeared in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Is that the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Reprising the role of Wicket.
Oh, there you go.
He appeared in the role alongside his son Harrison, who cameoed as Wicket's son, Pommet.
Oh god, that is so cute.
Star Wars is so
Oh, so he
how
was
can
one of
Star- like-
Anakin Skywalker's friends in the Phantom Menace, and Weasel, one of the gamblers in the pod race. I reckon that's where I remembered him from.
Yeah.
Oh, and he doubled Yoda in some of the scenes as well.
There you go.
How can Star Wars get away with acting like they're saying, oh, Warwick Davis was Wicket, and he appeared next to his in-universe son Pommet, and it's like none of that was in the fucking movie. Like I saw that movie, like they weren't named.
The word Wicket is never said in that film.
Yeah, right. Like
No,
it's
just made it up.
It's so unfair to act like that movie had lore and made sense because it's like, oh well, we named the Ewoks that were in the background for 5 seconds.
Hey, this is
I'm not
kind
trying
of
to take away
interesting.
from like Warwick Davis appearing. It's just like they act like these are named characters that we should be excited about. And it's like, really, the only cool part about this is that it's Warwick Davis and his son in real life. Don't act like these are characters who have names. Like they were cameos, and that's cool. But stop pretending it's more than it is.
So this is kind of interesting. So Warren Davis has founded a talent agency called Willow Management that specializes in representing actors under 5 feet tall. And then they go through a list like all of the people from his agency who were like in Star Wars. So some like Kenny Baker he must have played R2-D2 in the sequels or something. This whole list of them. That's cool.
Cool.
He just seems like a pretty cool kind of guy, huh?
He does.
Been a solid working actor for a long time and has done a lot of really cool roles.
I remember when I went to the like Harry Potter World place in London, and there was this big thing where it was just him talking about all this Star Wars stuff, and he was so engaging. And my friend and I just sat and watched this thing for like a good, just full like 15 minutes of just Warwick Davis talking about all this Harry Potter stuff, and we were like, wow, we'd never have thought I would just sit here and watch Warwick Davis talk for 15 minutes, but I can't stop watching.
Yeah. Seems like a chill guy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cool. I think that probably covers episode 3.
Do you know what it was yesterday?
Warwick Davis chat.
Yesterday it was James Earl Jones' birthday, I'm pretty sure. It was his like 90th birthday. The guy who voiced Darth Vader.
The voiced Darth Vader. Did he do Vader's voice in at the very end of this film?
I think he did, but I'm not sure. Let's look it up. James Earl Jones, Revenge of... Oh, I started putting up something about the Bible. I don't think James Earl Jones was in the Bible.
You never know. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he's pretty prolific.
He did do that last scene of Vader.
There you go. Good on him.
That's neat.
And are we all excited to see Hayden Christensen return in his role as Darth Vader in the new Obi-Wan series? Have you seen all the stuff 100%. Liam Neeson keeps being like, I would be keen to come back, crickets. That would be so fucking cool.
I mean, the Clone Wars definitely established that he could.
Yeah, he's like the only person who actually came back as an actor to the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite excited for that Obi-Wan Darth Vader thing because I think that might finally be one that, even though it has to leave Darth Vader where he is at the end, I think using Obi-Wan as the other side of it might actually let them do something with Darth Vader as the show goes on.
Screw that. They don't need to develop his character. I just want him to be fucking badass.
Hayden Christensen deserves the time to play a Vader that makes sense. I don't want to see them waste Hayden Christensen on guy in a suit who walks slowly, which is what Vader is.
Yeah, give him some personality.
Yeah, like this is their chance. This is their chance to make Vader a character for once. I really fucking hope
because it'd also be believable. Like this is set sort of between, I think the two trilogies. The 2 trilogies. There are 2 trilogies. And like it's kind of believable to me that he would still have had some more like personality and more of like Anakin in him towards the start, and then by the time you get to like the original trilogy, that he's kind of like lost a bit of his personality because he's just been like doing whatever Palpatine tells him for 20 years.
Yeah, especially if Obi's the one like getting it out of him. You know, like if anyone was going to possibly be able to connect, like it's like what they say at the end of episode 3. Like Padme says to Obi-Wan, "There's still good in him." So like it would make sense to me that Obi goes on some pilgrimage to try and reunite himself.
Bring him back.
Yeah, it's much more
And then
believable
after
than
he-
the idea that Obi-Wan just fucking sat on Tatooine and did nothing for like 20 years. I can't wait
like,
for this
he
series
hopefully-
to hopefully explain that away, 'cause it just seems so unlikely.
What if the series is just
Yeah,
him
like,
chilling on
hopefully-
Tatooine for 20 years?
God.
Yeah. Hopefully he like did something for like 2 years and then was like, "Oh, this isn't working. Luke will have to do it," and then he gives up. But it's like, I want to see him fucking try.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's believable that he tries and fails. That's fine. It's just so unbelievable to me that he just sat there and went, "Well, guess I'll just watch this kid grow up."
But yeah. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being patrons. Those of you who are hearing this are presumably at the $10 or above tier. So yeah, it's with your support that we, have the stuff to make this show and all of our other shows.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Shall we, now that we've covered these Star Wars films, is that it? Are we done with this show, folks?
Yep.
It's all over now. No, we have some ideas for what we're going to do next, but we're going to do a little like interlude next month before we dive into the next
the next
series or whatever that we're going to cover. So as a bit of a teaser, I guess, next month we will be covering the highest rated video game movie of all time.
Yeah.
That had a theatrical release.
I'm excited to talk about it. I was surprised to find out what it was, that it was the highest rated. But I mean, I'm keen to find out why. I expect we'll all probably enjoy it quite a lot.
I hope so. That would be very fun. But yeah, so we'll be back in a month to talk about the highest rated video game movie of all time with a theatrical release.
Bye.
So until then, see you all next month.
Bye.